Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be here. It's actually an honor to be around people who are about hope. And if you look at Big Picture's concept, it really is about hope and opportunity. That each of you involved is really dedicating your careers to making happen for young people and all of society. I think I'd start just this morning by sharing 2 or 3 minutes of sort of my philosophy of education so you can get to the tomatoes out to throw or not, and then get into this idea that we're talking about is how do we continue to open doors for young people, which is really the amazing opportunity of a portfolio entrance to university, and then open it up for some questions and processing with the leaders here who are all about trying to create new chances that everybody can have an inspired life, which is a privilege of what we do every day in education. So for too long, I believe schools have been places that young people go to watch their teachers work. Right, that was primarily my experience. I went to school so my teachers could work hard, and they gave me stuff to do, but it was mostly the stuff they told me to do, and I was mostly trying to give them back what they wanted. I was guessing at that, and if you get really good at that, you're a good student. If you're not really good at that or it doesn't fit your learning style, you're disengaged, disenchanted, you're a drop-in or a drop-out. And we probably have as many of both of those involved in Big Picture, I think, right now. And the traditional school setting really hasn't changed much in 100 years from primary to secondary. There's some iPads to give out every now and then. We want to get them excited. And there's some on the fringe, exciting innovations that are happening. But the mainstream still looks a lot like it did for schooling when I was in school in New York City in the 1960s. The desks are actually pretty much the same in some schools. The facilities are, in fact, the same. We've gone from having a chalkboard and a green board and a whiteboard to a smart board, but it's still a very didactic world we live in most cases. And Big Picture is really about changing that paradigm. And most of you in the room have been part of reinventing that in your classrooms, in your own careers, before there was a Big Picture, or right now if you're still thinking about Big Picture. So that notion of schools being places young people go to watch their teachers work has to be put aside. Yang Zhao, a Chinese-American scholar who will be coming to Newcastle next March in a conference, will be leading his quotation around that the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. And I believe the school age won't end because we run out of desks. We're really in a new way to think about what schooling can look like from here in the future with Big Picture model leading the way. And the great students you've met or are part of in your schools are really inspirational to me about what schooling really needs to look like as we move from here. We also have to reframe why we have schools to begin with. There's a lot of purposes out there that we need schools to accomplish. I think those are actually results, like we need proper citizens, and we need a well-educated, literate public, and we need a place that children can go while their mothers go to work. But those are all the results of school, in fact. The purpose of schooling we need to redefine, because we really need schools to be places young people go to work together to create knowledge or solve problems that helps improve stuff, improves the planet, improves the human condition. Collaborative, global, and innovation, those themes which are different than come be quiet, follow rules, and take tests. So think about how different the purpose is for schooling and where Big Picture fits into that, which is why I think the concept is so amazing. So as we do those things and rethink schooling, it all sounds great if we do it in K-12. But if universities still put up brick walls that involve traditional testing and scoring, it will allow a trickle of new innovation into the universities, but it really won't rethink the university as an access point. So what I'm excited about to work with the team of Big Picture and at our university is, so what does university admission look like for students leaving Big Picture and other school alternative sort of settings and paradigms around Australia and around the world? And the good news is we're not the first to think of this. There's lots and lots of institutions in the world that have already made that leap. Most of them are the most elite in the world, for where you don't have to really criticize Harvard for the fact that you do not need a high school diploma to get into Harvard University. You can present a portfolio, a video of evidence to an admissions team. It's got to be pretty good, but you can get in without that. It also helps if your mother gives $200,000, but that's another story, right? So the leading elite universities in the world have already gotten there because no one's going to challenge that brand. But for the rest of us, it looks like we're lowering standards to say a Big Picture student might turn in a portfolio and that equals their HSC. Well, why not? The HSC actually is a very irrelevant concept in terms of university admissions and predicting your future. It does give us information about some literacy, and how you tolerate high-stakes stress. Right? If we really want to use it as a stress indicator, it's a really good one. Whether it's in a university admissions criteria isn't what it was intended for, just as NAPLAN was never intended to be used as an individually reliable measure for anything. And ATAR is being misused for anything we're using it for regarding university admission. It's an invalid tool. But we then say, okay, but never mind, what's your ATAR? So I think what we have the chance to do is to break free of that and have alternatives. Meaning, what I believe is every student ought to play to their strengths. What is the evidence you have that you'll be successful at the next stage? Let's see it. And because of the amazing opportunity through the internship, through the portfolio, and through just the overall amazing stories that each student brings about their resilience and overcoming some tremendous odds to come back to school or to stay in school to achieve success, we have an opportunity to build that together. So what our university did 6 weeks ago now is the university executive has formally approved the piloting of admissions from the big picture schools in Newcastle area and the Waldorf School as well from this coming year, and build the opportunity to pilot it. We've said 5 from each school campus, but it could be something more than that if we go for them. It's our hope that that would expand to where there wouldn't be a limit or a quota once we prove and demonstrate that those students come in and they're invisible. That you can't actually tell the difference because they're doing so well that it's indistinguishable. By tracking them to start, we'll be able then to pull the tracking away, because I'm convinced that all you really need is a great idea, lots of inspiration, and the brain that God gave you, and you know what? The rest will be history. And the motivation big picture students bring will overcome any of those adversities of having to sit in large lectures way too much and take notes, because they'll see the motivation to get past that to the fun part of university. So where we are at our university is we have the chance now to work with our schools in the area to say, so what does that look like? And we'll be working with the team that will be working with Big Picture Australia to try to be consistent across the country, or deliberately inconsistent, because herding the cats of universities may be the biggest challenge we face. But what we're going to be doing just in the next several weeks is agreeing on criteria, and we want to include students in that process of developing the criteria. They'll stem from the work that's already done. But what I think we've talked about so far is it also allows us to scaffold up a bit, maybe raise the bar a little bit of what's currently expected out of a portfolio, to be, if you're going to present that portfolio to a university admissions committee, what's the rubric for that? And might just be a level deeper and richer than we might currently expect. I'm not saying it is, but it might just be another level of motivation. If there's going to be a presentation, is that a live or a tape presentation? And what would be the criteria for that presentation? Because you ought to be able to show you can read a little bit, write a little bit, present a little bit, and that the internship that you've done has made a difference. And we have some evidence, a letter of recommendation from the supervisor at that work site that says, you know what, this person is great on the job and they have all the potential in the world. And something from the principal or her designee at the school that says, this student's ready for this. So not a huge set of 23 different things that take longer, and nothing new that has to be produced in terms of student work, but a real presentation of actual authentic evidence of what's been done during the time at Big Picture. We have our admissions team already ready and academics ready to be the panel, and we've got more than we need to service. Nobody's feeling put upon by this. But I think what it becomes is, if we could tell a year 9 student, year 10 student next year when they come in, that there's a door that's open for you. It's not closed now, because a lot of students feel like, well, that won't happen. And people make decisions based on doors shut already for them. If I know uni's off the map, I'll make choices over here that actually make that probably a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if that door's open, and ATAR's one way, and HSC's another, and NAPLAN's another, and okay, all that's fine, but there's another door, I just might actually take this a little even more seriously, because that creates hope and opportunity for me, even if it's not right as a school leaver. I know there's a lot of young people who need a gap year. They want to study abroad. They have to take care of their mom or their sister, or they want to entrepreneur themselves in something great for a year or two and say, I'll be back at 20. If they know that door is available, you'll come back to it. I met a young man at a conference in this building several months ago who had dropped out of school at 15 and basically now was running his own high-tech web-based information business. And he realized he had a team of 5 other young people around him, and he needed to know not only how to run the business, run the books, because he was doing well enough, probably better than us in this room, but he didn't really know his business savvy, and he didn't know about managing people. Because he was just like with his mates and it was all good, and then he had to like supervise them. So he wanted to come back for a business degree, but he literally had no qualifications. So he didn't want to spend a year in an enabling program. When you're 23 and you've already taken over the world, why do I need to spend a year proving to you that I can take over the world? I've already done that. I just want a degree to help me do what I'm doing better. So part of what Viv and I have talked about is that what if the enabling program is big picture? What if we move the year that students might have done at our university in the past, post-secondary, as part of year 10, 11, 12? So you're actually completing the enabling program. It's called big picture, right? So that's a really cool way to think about a 21st century way to say you're doing it simultaneously. That would honor the big picture philosophy and would also mean that we don't have to tell somebody, yes, that's fine. In another year, after you run around the sun one more time, you'll be good enough for us. So I think where we are is the position where we have the portfolio approved. We're ready now to take students, even from 2016. We're primarily going to be working for 2017 with our campuses here in Newcastle. And then I believe working with the network around the country, we'll be able to make this a real set of options for any student down the road who comes to the university who just went on a pathway. I don't even think it's a different pathway. It was their pathway. We're working on reinventing teacher ed at the university in a network. I'll bore you with another presentation another time. But in this global learning equity network, the paradigm we're using is that every child deserves the education that's right for them. And that's an amazing concept, as opposed to the generic education that was sort of handed to us. You take what was told, at least my experience was that. What if every child deserved the education that was right for them, and we gave it to them the way they needed it, when they were ready for it, and when they had a little bump in the road, we said, all right, here's another way around it, so we can get you to your goal of having a great life. Right? So where we are is now, I think, to discuss that with you, take it to our team. That big picture we'll be working with around the country. But at our university, I think we're honoring the mission of what equity and access actually means. All right, so I brought along, this is the first time with no technology, no PowerPoint, nothing else. I brought along my magic wand. A year 2 student made it for me. I need a little more some tape to tape her back together. There's not even batteries. And usually in an audience, I wave it. I go, well, that didn't work. So I wave it again. And, well, that didn't work. Well, we didn't make a wish or anything, probably is why it didn't work. But what I tell people in that everybody's looking for the magic wand in education, right? What's the answer to the problem of the fact we have a lot of young people who maybe aren't reaching their potential and what we need to do? When I come to a group like this, I really say I don't need this magic wand because we have you. That's a pretty incredible thing to think big picture is that successful and that big an opportunity, and so many people are already taking advantage that the growth is wherever we'd like to take it from here. So if you think you are the magic wand, it kind of changes the reality for a Friday morning, doesn't it? To think, wow, that's pretty exciting to be part of the solution in a society that needs many more given